This is the Smallmouth Crush podcast. If you're a hardcore angler, you've come to the right place. This is a weekly podcast that will interview some of the top smallmouth bass anglers in North America. Travis and his guest will discuss what it takes to consistently catch big smallmouth, and you'll get a glimpse inside the mind of a trophy smallmouth angler. And now, here's your host of the Smallmouth Crush podcast, Travis Manson.
Hello, welcome to the Smallmouth Crush podcast. My name is Travis Manson. Another amazing week talking big smallmouth, trophy smallmouth with some of the top anglers in the country. And today's guest definitely can put some big smallmouth in the boat. But before we get to him, let's talk about the Real Shot. They carry all the most wanted bass tackle that a Smallmouth Crush fan could ask for. Top brands like Jackal, Megabass, Evergreen, Z-Man, Daiwa, St. Croix, Kitech, Guggen. Did I say that? Yeah, even Guggen baits and so much more. The Real Shot's easy to shop website will make selecting the exact product you need super easy with fast same-day shipping. They will help you get product in your tackle box before your next big tournament or big bass adventure. So head on over to therealshot.com. Let them know Smallmouth Crush sent you. Better yet, how about we use Smallmouth Crush 15? That's going to get you 15% off your first order. So go check out the Real Shot and let's get into it. Let's talk big smallmouth. Joe Lucarelli, I'm bringing him in. Here he is. Pops up just like that. Look at that setup.
Yo, yo.
How's it going?
It's awesome. How are you doing?
Well, wonderful. You know, it's awesome talking to everybody about big smallmouth. I know you love largemouth, smallmouth, pretty much everything. You got a heck of a track record when it comes to tournaments. But I want to focus today a little bit more on my favorite fish, the brownfish, and kind of some different techniques that you use on a regular basis, as well as want to go and talk to the viewers a little bit more and share with them a little of your background as well. So, Joe, if you could take over from here as far as just let us know, you know, what part of the country you're living in now and some of the lakes that you fish and what makes you love smallmouth fishing so much.
Sure. Great question. So I'm in the Northeast. I live in New Hampshire. Grew up in Massachusetts. So got a little taste of largemouth before I kind of moved to smallmouth country. Lake Winnipesaukee is my home lake. It gets talked about, but we never get any national events here, which is a little disappointing. Always kind of disappointed me that I never had a big one in my backyard. So obviously Champlain is huge, but definitely cut my teeth on Winnipesaukee, primarily a smallmouth lake with offers tons of different things. Just
how far away are you from that lake?
How far can you hit a golf ball?
Right there.
Yeah, it's close. I'm
not a golfer, so I couldn't answer that.
Either am I. I would have to hit it with a baseball bat.
Right.
But it's close. I have Squam Lake, which is, historical lake that's right down the street, and Winnipesaukee is 5 minutes away. So it's
Winnipesaukee. So I've heard of it. I know where it is. I can visualize it. I hope I said it right. What's going on in that lake right now? Is it how's the fishing?
Is
there some good fish in there, or is it?
It's phenomenal. It doesn't have the giants. I shouldn't even say giants, but this isn't like Travis Manson giants.
No 6-pounders.
No. It's funny. Everybody always you see somebody you haven't seen in 10 years or whatever. Oh, how's fishing going? And then they always ask, well, what's the biggest fish you've ever caught? And it's like a running joke. Like, I've never caught a 6-pound smallmouth. Ever. I've caught some 5s. I've fished for smallmouth for so long. I'm assuming it's just the region that I'm in. They just don't grow giant. But if you catch a 5 here, it's a really, really big fish.
Sure. No, you bring up a good point, because I talk about trophy smallmouth fishing so many times, and I mention that term. And really, it's trophy to your body of water. So, for instance, where I live now, I have the Susquehanna River, which flows through Pennsylvania, and a trophy smallmouth there is a 4-pounder.
Yeah.
catch a 4, you caught a trophy
Yeah.
smallmouth. It's really relative to the area that you live in. How's numbers then? Are we catching a lot of fish?
So, we call it a 2-2 lake, 2 pounds, 2 ounces. Like you'll catch a pile of fish. You'll catch 50 or 60 fish when it's right, in June.
Mm-hmm.
They get grouped up and, get off the bank. But if you catch when it's hot in the summer, you could have a 3.5 pounder that's going to be smallmouth lunker. It's just the way it goes. Unlike, Champlain and obviously the Great Lakes. But it's a great place to fish. It's a great. I used to guide. My dad was a guide forever. It's just a great
lake.
Yep.
That was the lake you guided on.
Yep.
Awesome. Now all those trophies and plaques and some big wins and some top 10s. Where does a lot of those come from? Bodies of water.
Yeah. So I realized, when I was probably 22 to 24, that a big event was never going to come to my home lake. So the next closest lake where the big money or the fame and all, everybody wants to go to Champlain. So that's a 3-hour ride for me. And I can remember doing many trips. I just needed to learn the lake. I knew nothing about it. I think the first time I ever went there was with my dad in a team tournament. It was like 1999. It was just super, super overwhelming. So I would do day trips. So I was working 45 hours a week, and I would get up at 4. I would be in the truck at 4:20. I'd be there at 7:20. I'd fish till 5. I'd get home at 8, and I'd work the next day. So that's what I would do on my day off. And it was just a lot of hard work, but it worked out, and I slowly started to break the lake down and understand what it was all about. So that was how Champlain all came about.
So a lot of those tournaments that you are Lake Champlain.
Yep, Champlain had a good event on Thousand Islands. But mostly Champlain. I just really fell in love with it. It's changed a lot.
Has it? Let's talk about that. What time frame are we talking when you first started fishing Champlain on a regular basis, and how has that changed since?
So I really started putting time in there 2003, 4-ish, I would say. It's a phenomenal. It used to be just a phenomenal perch lake, and you used to be able to find special things in 22 to 24 feet where you'd still have the grass and you have the perch over the top of the grass. And then it started to change, and the perch didn't stay put like they used to. And then you had just very nomadic smallmouth. So you would have something, you would have a great practice, and then you would go back to something. I'm talking a little bit later in the years, 2010, 11, 12, and then obviously alewives really took over the lake, and then the fish became just impossible to really go back day to day. So that's the biggest thing that I've noticed. The lake itself hasn't changed, except there's not as much grass in it as there used to be. I don't know if you call it Vermont, it's DES or whatever it is, but the farms and things, they can't use the same chemicals that they used to use. And they just Inland Sea used to have phenomenal milfoil, Main Lake. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. And you could have little pieces of Main Lake stuff that you could go and just throw topwater over, and you could catch a 3.5 to a 4 pound smallmouth. And that stuff's kind of gone away. So it's, I don't know, alewife stuff. Alewife. They drive me, as you know.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Like, when do you think that started to happen? Was that 2012, 13, 14, 15?
I really think that's right around the time. I personally noticed, I know we're not talking about largemouth, but I noticed in the southern end of the lake, it completely changed that whole fishery down there.
Right.
And then it seemed like it just started working its way north in Rouse's, and I call Rouse's the whole New York arm. Those fish are a little bit easier to figure out because you're dealing with 12 to 15 feet of water flats. So when you get to the inland seaside and you can be in 140 feet or, slide up on a hump that's 30 feet, there's a lot of in between. So they're on the hump in 30 feet one day suspended, and then next day they're in 140 feet sitting 40 feet down. So it's just it's tricky. You have those magical days up there still where, you catch one and then spits out a big alewife. Jerkbait has become huge. Not that it wasn't before, but just color differences now. You could throw, I can remember back in the day, a 128 Lucky Craft, and you're imitating that 5 to 6 inch yellow perch. Now you have to look at the size of the alewife, and sometimes you have to throw a little jerkbait or a little swim bait, like a little 3/8. One of the big things for me is, you hear what's your weakness? What's your smallmouth? It's that having the mindset of what you think or what you used to know and trying to change it. I remember probably 3 or 4 years ago, I was in just a super rut, and I would always take all my waypoints, whatever, everybody has just a pile of waypoints, 2,000 plus waypoints, and you just put them on your new units and you go start the season. Mm-hmm. I didn't transfer a single waypoint because I had to reinvent what I was doing smallmouth wise, because it was old school. It was, I didn't evolve. And now I'm starting to see, and I've also noticed if you don't have a live active target or live scope, all of that, you're really behind the 8 ball. So I'm looking forward to this year. Can't wait.
Yeah. So the alewives, basically they roam at different depths in big schools, and it's a great food source for smallmouth and largemouth. On Lake Champlain, I know for a fact that it changed some of the largemouth fishing, because a lot of times, especially earlier in the year when they come up and spawn, I believe they get in some of that grass, and you can have an amazing bite at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning and think you found the place that's going to load the boat up for these largemouth, but they're just in there feeding. And by the time a tournament hours come around, that bite has ended. The further north you get for those smallmouth, it's the same thing, but now smallmouth aren't, they're roaming so much that you can't really track them down. Joe, how are you trying to stay on top of those fish, or are you still targeting fish that are actively feeding on alewives, or are you looking for different fish that's feeding on, say, crayfish or still perch?
I feel like that next level fish, that 3 1/4 to 4 pound smallmouth, is keying on alewives.
Okay.
It's a soft fish, ton of protein, easy. It's just, think about it. Would you rather have a French fry or bite into something with some spines, like a perch? I mean, it's just so when I started on Champlain, I went through this whole thing of oh my God, I have the wrong drop shot hook. I went through this whole got in my own head deal, and just finally figured out that their mouths were so rough from eating perch that I had to change my entire setup, completely braid, step up another 2 pounds on the leader just so you could get the hook into the fish. I could remember I would take the tactics from Winnipesaukee and try and use them on Champlain, and you'd hang a fish in 30 feet of water on a drop shot. It'd come 5 to 10 feet off the bottom and just come off. And I can vividly remember one time I was in a top 10. I made I super scramble mode, made a big run, got on these deep fish, and I lost 3 right in a row. And that happened. They came 10 feet off the bottom, and literally I would see these big, I was my brain almost fell out of my head. I had 5 or 6 big 5 to 6 inch yellow perch that came to the surface. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what the fish are feeding on. It changed my whole deal. It's heavier rod. It's just different. It's not like the goby fish that have soft mouths, but that was back in the day. Now it's all obviously changed. But
Sure.
by target alewives, I try to. Do I have specific spots? Like, can I pull up on a waypoint and fish like that anymore? No. But you're sitting in the seat more. You drive around. You're looking at your Lowrance, just trying to find the bait. And as soon as you find the bait, and I don't care if you're in 80 feet of water, 60, 40, if it's up in the water column, just find it, stop on it, and just get on the trolling motor.
Okay.
I've so many times I've driven over big piles of bait, not seen any fish in it. And you've probably done this before. As soon as you put the trolling motor down, you'll see, a hook in the bait, and it's like, why can't I see that on 2D? And then it's just weird. But then you top of the bait and chase them around. It's a pain, but they're giants in it.
Right. Number wise, can you have a crazy number day doing that pattern, or are you looking for 8-10 bites and you're happy with that?
It's scary. It's like you're setting yourself up for disaster doing that, in my opinion. And 8 to 10 bites would be phenomenal. It's more like 5 to 7. But they're just right. It's just but it's a great one day. It's a great BFL type strategy. Like if you're going to put all your eggs in that basket and do that, and go catch 21 or 22 pounds of smallmouth, which guys are catching they're catching that type of quality fish on Champlain now, where it used to be 3.5 to 4 pounders. It's now, you'll see a lunker. It's 5 1/4. It's totally different now. Alewives just made them big, but it made them crazy.
So summertime pattern, you're out there idling around, you're looking for bait fish. You could be in 20 feet or 60 or 80, it sounds like.
Yep.
When you find that group of bait and it's close to the surface, and let's say you just have, it's not blowing, it's just a little bit of chop. And I know, based on some of the success that I've had on Lake Champlain, there was always a good topwater bite for me. Does that happen on these fish? I'm thinking it does, but I want to hear from you. Maybe it doesn't, because those fish are up top, sometimes. Do you see that out in the open water, or are you throwing down in the water column to get those bites?
You do see it. The biggest thing that comes into that whole deal with being on top or throwing a jerk bait or a swim bait through them is the size of the bait. So we've seen it in practice where you'll have those little tiny 2-inch alewives, and they're so keyed in on that, it's almost impossible to mimic. And it all depends on the time of the year, like you said summertime, but even when we'll get up there for like a July 15th, you can still have the real tiny stuff, and even into early August.
Okay.
In my opinion, you can't catch them on a top water when they're super small. One of the things I like to do is, you throw a cross tail, or any type of, you could throw any just super subtle 2 3/4, 3-inch bait on a drop shot, smoke purple, and just throw it out. What I like to do is I'll throw it out way further than I would normally. I usually just flick it, 20, 25 feet in front of the boat. I will try and make a cast with it to the point of where you don't want to rip it off the hook when you cast it. And as soon as that bait will hit the water, I'll let it get down about 5 feet, and I'll just click the bail and just point at it. So I want that pendulum type deal. Sometimes they'll bite the weight, and sometimes they'll bite the bait. But that's like a very subtle approach over that deep water that seems to work sometimes. And smallmouth are wild. Like, I'll have 12 rods, and like everything will be different. And I'll have. Do I always have a top water tied on? Sure, because you have to. But I'll usually start high and then start to work my way down. I feel like those fish that feed up are bigger fish. I feel like that are underneath are a little bit smaller. So am I going to throw a big spook first? Sure. Am I going to throw a swim bait next, or a jerk bait? Yes. And then I'll slowly start to work my way down to figure out what's going on. You're not going to fish on the bottom for those fish over deep water, because they're just constantly moving. But that's kind of where I'm at. Spinnerbait, like who I used to crush them on a spinnerbait. Who didn't? It was like the thing. When's the last time you caught a smallmouth in a spinnerbait?
Yeah.
I mean, when it's right, but
Sure.
it would just smoke a spinnerbait. It's not anymore, for me at least.
Yeah, things definitely are changing, and it's not like we have to stay on top. New electronics, things like that are of course helping, but sometimes you get dialed into the wrong bite. Do you feel chasing those alewife fish sometimes? You should be maybe doing something different. Have you? What are some other
Totally.
things that you do to target smallmouth?
I sit in the seat a lot. I mean, just like you, just a lot of people will look around and try and find something special. It's not like finding that one rock on a flat. Like, I feel like that's kind of like different. It's more like you need to find that cup, like in that contour line cup, where they're not even there when you find the cup, or I call it a cup, just like, just where you shallow off a flat, it'll break off, and then you'll have a little piece that'll come around and kind of like collect. It's almost like you have to think, oh, that's right, that's going to be right, because you have this wind, and 4 days ago when you found it, it was a desert, and now you go and check it when it's right, and it's like, oh my God, like, here they are. I've seen that on shoals on Ontario, like just the way the wind blows. And I've made long runs and been completely burned and had to learn that way. It always baffles me. These guys will say, oh yeah, I was on this big shoal and they were on the northwest side and I was murdering them. And then they said, I just had to refine my fish. I'm sorry. When it's 3 and 4 footers, like,
yeah,
refine your fish, that's difficult. That's like,
sure.
That's been there, done that, and you have too. It's tough. Those guys are good.
That's the worst feeling, and then it's like, there's so much, yes, there's wind, there's bait, there's water temperature. You get on some of these bigger waters, that wind changes the temperature. I'm sure it happens on Champlain too. Those alewives probably want a specific temperature range. That's why they're hanging out where they are, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. I would think about exactly what you just said. So I fished a BFL 1,000 years ago, and it was a late June or middle June deal. So it was still kind of a spawning thing. And I'd found some beds, whatever. It was out of Plattsburgh. It blew 15 to 25 from the south. I put the boat in the water. I had 62-degree water the day before. I put the boat in the water. It was 46 degrees. It blew all that main lake water. It rolled it over and brought it right to where my stuff was. Everything that I had, those fish vacated the beds. Gone. Bizarre. Yeah.
Did you readjust or did you just suck that day?
I kind of did the sucking part.
Okay.
This gets that was a bad one. Yeah.
Right. Wow. So let's say, the last thing I want to do is go spend a bunch of time. Let's say I'm going up to Champlain for a weekend of just fun fishing. I don't have time to go look for 8-9 bites, chasing alewives. What's something that you found on a consistent basis you can still get some good fish with a technique or an area? What are you looking for to get bites?
I hate this type of fishing. Both a little different, but everybody, any place that there's current or a blow through on Champlain, there's always going to be fish there. Are you going to catch, a pound and a quarter, bump into a big one, pound and a quarter, you can catch 20 or 30 fish and catch one good one. Or when it's right, you can catch 5, heavy fish. But that's probably the only consistent on that lake.
Yeah,
for smallmouth.
I agree.
It's just playing bumper boats and getting in there and throw. And honestly, when it's like that, they're there to eat. So you can throw a drop shot, you can throw a tube, you can throw spider jig, you can throw whatever you want to throw. You're confident and you go up there and catch fish for sure.
Yeah, exactly. What is I know you said your biggest, was your biggest smallmouth from Champlain?
I think it was on Ontario. Honestly.
Ontario.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. I know you're definitely a big stick and you love Champlain, but what are your thoughts on the Great Lakes? And do you have a lot of experience on that, or is it strictly St. Lawrence River, Ontario? Have you been further west?
Yep, I've been further west. So I've been out of Buffalo, which I love. It's only one time. It's set up really, really well for me. I enjoyed it. I fished out of Cleveland.
Yep.
Out of Cleveland. I enjoyed that as well. That's the section. And then this place called Sandusky, I think it's called Sandusky.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
No.
Section. I just don't jive. Like I don't. You're always learning, but it's like I just can never put 2 days in a row there. Like
so maybe the you prefer the eastern basin of Erie, Lake Ontario, a little cleaner water.
Yeah.
Some structure that you can mark and contour lines that are pretty accurate on the map. I know Sandusky area can get tricky.
It's just weird to me. Like
a little weird, sure.
Pasta or whatever they call it, a Strand, Everstart. I don't know. What are they called these days?
I don't know. They keep changing.
So I get there. I put the boat in the water, and the water is 78, 79 degrees. Like this. So what do I spend like the first 2 or 3 days doing? Looking and 24, 26. I'm like, one day I'm like, I'm going to go shallow. I'm going to play around in like 16 to 18.
Right.
So I'm bored and I'm like, I'm just going to go up on this bank. And the bank was loaded. And I'm like, what are these fish doing? Like, they're not eating bait. They don't spit anything. It's like, and they were in little wolf packs, 4 and 5 of them. And they were easy to catch. And if you couldn't catch them on a swim bait or a jerk bait, and you turned one or not even, you just flick a net in front of them and they just eat it. And
was this a bank on the mainland or a bank around some of the islands?
Island stuff.
Yeah. And they just got up shallow.
I don't know. I've learned a lot with full moon stuff, and I had a friend turn me on to that, and just kind of like when you Great Lakes fish and full moons are like, oh my God, everything changes. Like you can throw everything out the window and you just need to get on the bank. And we both got burned on Ontario a couple of years ago, probably more than a couple, but we had some really good stuff in the lake. Really good stuff. It wasn't super late into summer. I think it was July, but those fish were done. And they've gotten into that, not super deep, just that 22 to 26. And they were like out there and they were heavy and they looked good and they weren't just posted out smallmouth. They were eating. We crushed them first day of the tournament, or we both kind of had a soft day of practice on the last day. And then the day of the tournament came and it was big full moon and those fish ran to the bank. And if I've learned one thing over the years, it's when it's, I'm not going to say it's on everybody's lake, but the Great Lakes, I've learned that those fish just run to the bank when that full moon thing happens. And I got burned on Sandusky because.
Yeah. What happened? So you had those shallow fish. Did you go back to them?
I caught them the first day. I had some fall off, but I caught them. And I don't know. I caught 17 or 18. I was right there. And it was the tail end of it though. Like, and I knew it. But I didn't have anywhere else to go because I didn't have an in between, and I had one little flat. It was like a little current spot. It was clean. It was pretty cool. I kind of can't wait back. Next time I get there, I'll check it. But I found it late, and I've never ever had like equipment failures like I did on those big, dark, long ones, those big ones. I had one break a hook on jerkbait. I've caught some smallmouth before, like on jerkbait, and this was just a disaster day. Split rings. I had one break a split ring. I had one break a hook, and they weren't easy to catch. So you get bit, You'd work. You finally get one to react, and then that happened. But it was a neat spot. That was kind of. I can't wait to go back there for that one.
Sure.
Next time I'll be there, it'll probably be August.
And they won't be there, right?
It's 71 degrees, and the fish will be in 30 feet of water. Backwards. It's always smallmouth. They're crazy.
Yes, they are. That is so true. So, as far as techniques go, what's your favorite way to catch them if you could pick?
You know,
it sounds like you're a jerk baiter, but you get into finesse fish. I mean, who are you? Define that. What gets you excited?
I'm all over the place. Like,
are you?
I love to catch them on a swim bait, and that's very regional in my opinion.
Soft plastic or hard bait, or what are we talking? Soft. Yep.
Drop shot deal. I've done that since I feel like it came out. So my dad put a silver buddy on the map in the Northeast. Like, nobody was doing that. He exposed that. And back in the day, when you had that in your back pocket, you could literally not move the boat and catch 40 or 50 fish. So is that fun? Yeah, that's all. That's you've done that. Everybody's done that. It's a ton of fun. I don't know. I'm top water. It's all. I don't know. I don't really have that one thing that
sure
is just crazy. Was I like a drop shot just completely like that for years? Sure, because that was like the deal. And has that changed? Changed a little bit, but it's still a player. Tubes. I hate throwing tubes. It's a thing. It's a staple for smallmouth, right?
Right.
I literally weakness. I could be probably one of the worst tube fishermen.
Come
on this list.
I don't believe it.
I'm telling you, I lose fish on a tube. I don't know. I'd rather catch one on a spider jig. That's kind of my jam. Just slow drag that deal.
The same thing as a tube. Just pretend it's a tube, and the hook set's the same. Everything's the same, man. Come on.
Things. I've had some just bad.
I totally get where you're coming from though with a tube, because I use it, but in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, well, that's what everybody's using. That guy in that little rowboat over there knows about tubes.
Throwing a tube, yeah. It's just. But when it's right, I guess. I don't know. If I cut my teeth on the Great Lakes, I would probably be a halfway decent smallmouth fisherman.
Huh. Well,
I forgot that.
Where is your favorite place to smallmouth fish? If you could pick one body of water.
Tough call. I think it changes. I don't know. Winnipesaukee, the home lake, obviously is fun. It's extremely predictable.
Tell me about that lake. Is it crystal clear? Is there houses? Is it wilderness? Is it jet skiers everywhere? Can you get what's the deal there?
It's chaos.
Okay.
It's a
party lake.
It's a party lake. It's a lot of things. It's 45,000 acres. It's a big lake. It's clear. It's a vacation lake for a lot of people. It's a second home lake for a lot of people. It gets really, really rough. Boat traffic is crazy. But the fish don't mind. They're just so used to it. I mean,
used to it. Yeah.
Crazy.
I think as an angler, you're more pissed off when that jet skier is, 50 feet from that rock pile you're trying to cast to.
I'm so numb.
Right.
I'm just like this. I'm like,
you don't even put your hands up in the air anymore.
No, that's over. I just try not to get run over. That's the big thing. And it's nice with spot lock and all that stuff. Now you can kind of you take a couple steps off the front of the boat when you have a 30-foot cabin cruiser that like the dude doesn't know how to drive it.
Right.
Going like 9 miles an hour, and he's a giant wake. But that's nice to be able to just get off the front and not get wet all the time. I don't know. Fun place. St. Clair. I've never. This is my first year I've ever fished it, and I like the love of it. So we went there for the Toyota series, and I kind of figured it out after about 4 days, and then they they wouldn't let us leave the river for those 2 days, that was just like, I didn't get the river. I didn't understand the river. Heavy current. That was like just crazy.
Walk me through that event. So were you able to fish any time on St. Clair in the tournament?
Nothing. So they wouldn't let us go out there.
Did you put any time in the river?
I did, because they like to just do that nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Not like the old days where they'd be like, "You got it, you can drive it, you can do it." Yeah, that's over. So I put a couple days in the river. I found a couple current seams where I caught some fish. I probably caught 15 or 16 pounds one day. It didn't leave. I had a place to go. And that fell apart. And it was just, I don't spend a lot of time in Messina or Waddington on the river. And I'm assuming that speed of current is similar to Detroit, that 2-1, 1-7, 2-1, all depending on which way the wind blows. But that's what I was dealing with on Detroit River. It was 2-1, and I couldn't even present right. Like, one of the big things I learned was, and it took me till a couple, the final hours of the last day, is you make you fire it as far as you can, and you can't even like walk it back. You have to go with the current, because if you don't, by the time your bait gets to the bottom, it's underneath the boat. Sure. So you fire it, and then you just go with the current, and you feel bottom. And how I got bites, but that I learned a lot there. I wish I could have went to St. Clair, and I'm sure everybody was in the same situation. But
what was your pattern?
I had kind of two things going on. I would drag around, but I would throw a crankbait too.
Okay. Yeah.
That's not groundbreaking for. I didn't figure anything out. But
I think it's interesting because, especially for like myself, I don't have a whole lot of cranking, experience. There's other baits that I normally pick up before I would a crankbait. Of course, I've used it, caught them, but you hear a lot of stories about St. Clair and that epic crankbait bite. I would love to experience that someday.
So different. So I do have experience with deep water smallmouth and cranking.
Okay.
It's XD6, it's DT20, it's anything that you would have confidence in that would get to that 20-foot mark.
Okay.
Stocky, you can crush them. It's like it's a marathon, because it seems like every cast takes forever, but you can catch some good fish on it. They've gotten smart on that deal. It's not like it used to be. 10 years ago was a lot of fun, just because they weren't seeing it. They weren't seeing that presentation. And that's true with anything smallmouth wise. They can be so smart or they can be so stupid, in my opinion. But they do get conditioned. So
I want to get to that story, but I want to make sure we cover these crankbaits, because I am fascinated about this topic. So the deeper cranks, your 6XDs, your DT20s, you're trying to get in that 18 to 20. Are you trying to hit bottom, or does it matter?
So I don't fish rock at home. We have rock bass. They've kind of taken over a little bit. And our crayfish population is nothing like what it used to be. Okay. So every year's a little bit different. We just got out of a couple years ago, we got out of a big smelt. We had too many smelt in the lake, and that scattered a lot of fish. Like we talked about earlier, alewives scattering fish, smelt scatter fish and make them nomadic. So it pulled a lot of fish off of the grass. I fish grass. I fish deep grass. And if you can put, a little bit of rock in that grass, that's money. Or just outside the grass. But just deep cranking, 8-foot rod, just like those guys would throw on like a ledge. 10-pound test. But mess around with braid, to get it deeper. Just played all the games. And it's, what I found to be so much different with fishing on St. Clair versus what I'm used to is I'm using a 5-3-1 in that deep water. Just it just takes forever. I tried to do that on St. Clair and I was dying. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I ended up putting on a 7-1, and I was throwing a 5XD, DT10, just things that you can move. You can, and you'd feel like you weren't doing the right thing, and then all of a sudden, holy cow, 4-pounder, and you'd have a follower, and then you could just settle down, hit spot lock, hit a waypoint, and then you could just flick around, and then so I found a neat deal there. I call my dad. I'm like, Dad, I found something good. And he's like, oh, really? What is it? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, right. I know what I'm looking at on the bottom in 16 feet of water on electronics. Mm-hmm. I drove this thing and drove this thing and drove this thing. I have no idea what it was. And you could say it's a spring. You could say there's a little bit of rock in maybe with the grass. But literally, I had no clue. I would go back to it once a day after just pure boredom of trying to duplicate it. Every time I'd go back, I'd catch one.
Wow.
It's just bizarre. Just fishing sometimes.
So you got me all excited. You said you can throw a crankbait and settle down with a finesse bait if you had to, but you sound like you tried that all over the lake and you only had one spot.
No,
bummer.
I had flats that I could just I could just go through and catch.
Still cranking?
Cranking, yep.
Okay.
I tried everything else. But I say this. That one place that I had, I said, oh man, I want to just see if I can just do something else here. I caught one on a jerkbait. I caught one. It just told me, I'm like, when you get on, you can catch on whatever you want. You just need to find the fish. Mm. It was a weird place, and I.
So was the speed of the drop or the speed of the crankbait, was it a faster retrieve than you're used to? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's just like I put on a 7-1, crank it really, and it was a workout. And these, just if they were bored with it, they didn't want any part.
When you're cranking on St. Clair, are you hitting some grass every once in a while? A lot of grass, or not really?
Every once in a while. One thing I learned up there was you have tall grass and short grass, and it made a difference. You needed to know which one you needed to be in, and I'm sure different time. I know this much about St. Clair. I don't. It's not. I learned a lot, but it's you had Scott on today, and it was he knows so much about it. Tricky.
It blows. Yeah. That local knowledge comes into play, but what separates a lot of the top smallmouth anglers in the country are, just like you said, being able to go there. And yes, you're competing against some major sticks that know that lake well. But if you have some experience, if you have that right mindset, you can go and find some fish and do well in an event, no doubt. So that's my next question. I want to know what really separates yourself from other anglers in the country as far as your mindset goes when it comes to smallmouth. What do you think makes you who you are and so successful in these tournaments, events, and just fishing for smallmouth in general?
I'm gonna probably throw you a curveball, but I think I'm it's a double-edged sword with me. In it, you can say zero or hero or however you want to say it, but when I think I am doing the right thing, if it works for me, then I'm going to do extremely well. I have about this much that can go wrong. 5 to 7 bites, like we were talking about. It's a mindset. I guess I have that mindset.
Okay.
No, I don't. winning the points championship is a phenomenal feat, but it's kind of not my jam. I've always been kind of a trophy guy, or tried to get a trophy, and missed because of it. And I can just, I don't know. I take chances, I guess, is it. And, we talked about going to those, blow throughs on Champlain, where they're community spots, and fishing with other guys. I don't like that. It's just not, I just don't like it. And it's hurt me. It's like, it's really hurt me in the past, but, that's probably what separates me, is I'm willing to take like a big chance.
Sure.
If I think it's right.
Yeah. No, that's great information.
Everybody has these big screens, and, I'm not the only guy throwing braid to a 8-pound fluorocarbon leader anymore. It's not 20 years ago. I've noticed that everybody's just so good now. Everybody, from watching videos, from just live tournaments, you get to see it all. And you used to have stuff in your back pocket, and now it's not the case. So making decisions is a really big deal, I think.
Yeah. I think this is great advice. I haven't really thought about that. I was just, honestly, just so everybody knows, I was admiring all your plaques and trophies in first place, and I don't have a big win, dude. And I'm thinking, I got to change, first I got to fish more bigger events, but it kills me not to have a big win.
Yeah.
And I'm doing exactly what you're saying. When I'm struggling, I'm going to those blow throughs and trying to catch my 17 pounds so I look respectable on the stage,
I'm telling you, dude, I'm not gonna lie. When I'll catch, I'll be in the top 10, and then I'll just like fall on my face in the text messages and the phone calls.
Right.
And that's all of it. It's like, dude, what happened? And I've been, I went for it. Like, I don't know.
Wow.
I don't, like, just how I roll, I guess.
Yeah. Well, awesome interview, Joe. I really appreciate that. We didn't really talk. We got a little bit of time here. Let's talk about that. So your father, he's a legend as well. You talked about him introducing or blade baiting to the Northeast, techniques like that. I want you to speak for him, but let's go over a little bit of background on your dad and really how he got you into fishing as well. If we could take a few moments for that.
He was the one. He never pushed it. It was just always there. His big thing was, guiding, and maybe he learned some of that from me being little. But a kid doesn't need to catch a 2-pound smallmouth. He can catch a little yellow perch. He can catch a little, bluegill or anything like that. So he never pushed it on me. I didn't start fishing team tournaments with him until probably I was 16. And then it kind of snowballed from there. He's accomplished a lot, and I'm proud to say I came in second place to him in an ever start. He won the event. I led it for the first 2 days, and he won it on the last day.
Wow.
Just, you want to talk about like taking a shot? Like,
that was on Champlain, correct?
That was Champlain, 2009. He picks up a white spook. Like, he hadn't thrown a spook all day, or practice or anything. And it was a big gross east wind, overcast. Like, I can think of 2 things for smallmouth where I don't want to throw a topwater. It's an east wind.
Right.
It's overcast. Like, I want big sun. I want to be able to see it. And he just had a feeling. He got a feeling, and he ended up catching 20 pounds, I think, that day. He earned it for sure. He made a decision. He took a shot. So,
were you guys fishing the same type of pattern? Could you see each other throughout the day?
It was bizarre. He found the best stuff in the New York Arm, and I found the best stuff in the Inland Sea. It's like we ended up fishing the event was over, and there was a kind of a big team tournament on Champlain the next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Do you think we should fish that?" I said, "Yeah, I think we should fish that." It was we had just phenomenal.
Dude, that's a lot of pressure. Then you got a first and a second. Now you're going to jump into a team event the following week.
It was fun. It was easy. It was just I had some stuff going on, and he had some stuff going on. It was. I think we ended up catching like 24 for 6 or something. I don't know.
Did you win that one?
I can't remember.
Oh, but you up there?
We might have. I don't know. We might have come in second or
right.
We had the best day we could have, so it was like,
yeah,
nice. It was a nice thing. But yeah, no, he's accomplished a ton. Taught me a ton. He's always been there.
Well, awesome, Joe. This is some good stuff. I hope the viewers learned a tip or two. I know I'm excited. I think I'm gonna throw a crankbait a little bit more after listening to this. So how can people get a hold of you on social media? What's the best way?
So it's just Joe Lucarelli on Facebook and Phoenix 921 on Instagram.
Any sponsors, anybody helping you out you want to give a shout out to?
Mercury's been in the game with me for a long, long time. Appreciate it. Phoenix Boats, Power Pole, Precision Sonar, all those guys, Lawrence. A little bit more personal. My dad's always, family, 100%. Missy at Children's Dentistry. That's my girlfriend. She helps me out a lot. Ton of support. Just all my friends.
Sure.
Looking forward to this year. Gonna fish a little more this year.
Well, guys, I appreciate everybody listening to the podcast and watching us on our YouTube channel, Smallmouth Crush. Joe, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.
And as always, until next time, we'll see you guys on the water.
Thanks so much for listening today. Make sure that you're subscribed to the show and follow us on Instagram at SmallmouthCrush. Also, the YouTube channel, SmallmouthCrush. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and comment with a review below. And as always, until next time, we'll see you on the water.
Have you ever wondered if your electronics are set up perfectly, or perhaps there's a specific technique that you just want to learn a little bit more about? Maybe you have a tournament coming up on a new body of water and you want a second pair of eyes on how to approach that. Maybe it's your home body of water and you want to go through some seasonal patterns. I'm offering a service called the Smallmouth Crush One-on-One. It's actually a web-based program, so we can meet virtually and I can answer any fishing-related question that you may have, any topics, any questions. We're going to go into detail, and then we're going to be able to record that conversation so you can have a copy of that and look over that in the future. It's a really neat program I'm excited to offer. And if you want to take advantage of this, all you have to do is head on over to my website, travismanson.com. Upper right-hand corner, you're going to find the link, Smallmouth Crush One-on-One. And it goes into detail as far as what that service has to offer. And I look forward to chatting with you.